a couple of important golden rules that you must apply when you look at chain reactions. When you look at a fiscal policy chain reaction, there must be absolutely no mention of money supply. You can see in your primary effect and your secondary effect, there's no mention of money supply. If you include money supply in a fiscal policy question, it doesn't make sense. Your chain reaction is effectively nonsensical because the government does not function in the monetary sector per se. It functions predominantly in the real sector. The central bank and monetary policy functions in the monetary sector, and hence when the central bank imposes policy, there is an effect on money supply. So with a fiscal policy question, there must be no MS, there must be no mention of money supply. The second important golden rule is that remember your secondary effect is a counter effect, a feedback effect on the primary effect. So what that means is the secondary effect must be the opposite of the primary effect. And what do I mean by the opposite? The effect on GDP and prices must be the opposite. And you can see in this example over here, the increase in the budget deficit results in a stimulation of GDP and prices. But in the secondary effect, the feedback effect, GDP decreases and prices decrease. The third golden rule, as it were, of these chain reactions is that the primary effect is always greater than the secondary effect. The PE is always greater than the SE, the secondary effect. So whatever happens in the primary effect, all the variables in the primary effect, the impact, the magnitude on them as a result of the policy measure is always greater than the second round effect reflected in the secondary effect. The next golden rule is that the variables in the chain reactions, their order does not change. Very important, the order does not change. You cannot confuse or mix up the order. For example, it doesn't make sense for you to have total production before total expenditure. Because then you're saying suppliers are producing more and that results in an increase in demand for a particular product. Now that might be true in the case of certain products, but one of the core fundamental assumptions of the Keynesian model is that it's a demand-driven model. What that means is demand drives the production side, demand drives the supply side. So TE must always be before TP. Another important rule is that when you get to TE in your chain reactions, the variable before it is always one of the components of GDP or total expenditure. And what are the components of total expenditure or GDP? Consumption expenditure C, private capital formation I, government spending G, exports X, imports M. So you need to get to one of those 5 variables, and once you get to one of those 5 variables, the next one is always TE. So you can see in the primary effect over here, G is included in the variable before TE, therefore the next variable is TE. If you look at the secondary effect, the variable before TE is private capital formation, investment, private investment. So the next variable is TE. The next golden rule is the secondary effect always stays the same. The variables, that is. The variables always stay the same. The only thing that changes is the direction of the change. So in other words, it's either an increase or a decrease, which is based on the result of the primary effect. So in effect then, once you get to the total expenditure and your primary effect, the variables in the chain reaction stay the same. So we're making quite a few assumptions here of the behavior of economic agents. We're assuming that the second round effect is always initiated by an increase or decrease in main demand, which in turn results in a respective increase or decrease in interest rates. So the second round effect is driven by, was kicked off by rather, the transaction demand on the back of the demand of economic agents to transact.